Chapter 4. Heaven's radiance seemed to dim under the weight of what was to come. The throne room, the seat of eternal justice and mercy, stood as a beacon of unmatched splendor. Its living crystal walls refracted the uncreated light of the Creator, sending endless waves of color cascading across the golden streets below. The air was thick with apprehension, the faint hum of angelic wings and soft murmurs carrying a weight that felt foreign to this once harmonious realm. The scent of eternity, celestial blossoms, living waters, and the faint incense of worship lingered faintly in the air. The river of life flowed beneath the transparent floor of the court, its shimmering waters a reminder of the Creator's unyielding love and provision. Yet now, even its gentle flow seemed subdued, as though creation itself held its breath. Inside the court, towering thrones of light stood at the center of all attention, each emanating its own unique aura of holiness. The Father sat upon the highest throne, his presence overwhelming yet tender, radiating light that filled every corner of the infinite room. Beside him, the Son, Michael, sat with a calm and resolute expression, his form a perfect reflection of the Father's glory. The Spirit, ever present, moved as a shimmering essence that flowed between them, uniting their purposes in perfect harmony. The silence was palpable as 4 angels stepped forward, their forms reflecting their unique roles within the celestial order. Gabriel, his countenance calm yet firm, led the group. His golden wings shimmered faintly, his posture straight as a sword, radiating a commanding authority. Beside him stood Cassiel, whose 6 wings folded reverently as his piercing blue eyes reflected profound thought. Selaphiel, ever vibrant, seemed unusually subdued, his copper-hued wings shifting slightly with unease. Raphael followed last, his gentle face etched with sorrow, his emerald wings dimmed as though reflecting his heavy heart. They knelt before the thrones in reverent silence, their hearts heavy yet resolute. "Ancient of Days," Gabriel began, his voice steady and clear, "we come not only as witnesses, but as representatives of our brethren. Across the expanse of your creation, whispers have grown louder. Beings in distant galaxies question, and the angelic host stands divided. It seems nearly half of heaven has aligned with Lucifer." The Father's light did not dim, but there was a perceptible pause, a stillness that reverberated through the court. His voice, eternal and steady, flowed like the river of life. "We are aware of the discontent, Gabriel. Speak freely." Gabriel's gaze did not waver. "There are those among us who sympathize with Lucifer's claims. They say he speaks of freedom, of a government unshackled by law. They wonder, could he be right? Some ask why the Son was exalted above him. Others fear what will happen to those who remain loyal." Cassiel stepped forward slightly, his wings unfolding just enough to reflect the iridescence of the court's light. His voice was measured, his words chosen with precision. "The foundation of your government, my lord, is love. Perfect, infinite, and eternal. Yet that love cannot exist apart from law. Without law, there is chaos. Without obedience, harmony dissolves." He paused, his gaze flickering to the Father and then to the Son. Lucifer's claims strike at the heart of this balance. He suggests that law is a restriction, that freedom cannot coexist with obedience. But freedom without order is destruction. Love requires boundaries, not as chains, but as the framework within which it thrives. Selaphiel, normally effervescent, spoke hesitantly, his voice carrying the weight of inner conflict. And yet, Lucifer's words resonate with some, even with me at times. He speaks of autonomy, of the intelligence we were gifted with. He questions why we cannot see the entirety of your purposes, why we must trust without knowing. His voice faltered, and Raphael placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "I do not doubt you, my lord," Selaphiel continued, his copper wings trembling slightly. but I confess his words sow confusion. I see brothers I love wavering, and I don't know how to bring them back." The Father's light pulsed gently, as though to soothe the burdened hearts before him. "My beloved children, your honesty is not a failing but a strength. I see your hearts, and I know your struggles. Lucifer's path is one of deception, yet his words are crafted to exploit the very gifts I have given you: reason, love, and the freedom to choose." His voice grew firmer, resonating with a power that filled the court. To destroy him now, to silence him, would validate his accusations in the eyes of those who doubt. The universe would forever question if my government is founded on love or on force. Therefore, we will allow this rebellion to unfold. Every being will see its fruits, and every question will be answered. Michael, who had remained silent until now, stood and addressed the four angels. "You will form a committee, representatives, chosen from among your peers and the beings of other realms. They will bear witness to these proceedings, to every claim and every defense. Let the truth be revealed, in full view of all creation." Gabriel bowed deeply. "As you command, my lord." The Father's voice softened. "Prepare the court. The accused shall speak, and the truth will stand." The throne room of heaven, the very heart of the cosmos, was filled to overflowing. Beings from every corner of creation stood side by side, their forms as varied as the stars, each bearing the mark of their realm's unique glory. The luminous walls of the court reflected their shimmering light, refracting rainbows that seemed to pulse in time with the whispers that spread like an undercurrent through the gathering. Even the river of life, flowing steadily beneath the transparent floor, seemed subdued, as though it too awaited the words about to be spoken. The air carried the faint hum of celestial wings, their rustling a quiet backdrop to the tense silence. Every being present felt the weight of the moment. Whispers from distant galaxies spoke of rebellion and reform, of freedom and injustice. And now, all of heaven gathered to hear the voice at the center of it all. At the heart of the assembly, the thrones of the Godhead radiated an unearthly brilliance, their light both a comfort and a warning. The Father's presence was overwhelming, a steady warmth that filled the space with love and authority. Beside him sat the Son, Michael, his countenance serene yet resolute. Around them the Spirit moved like a living flame, weaving unity and holiness into every corner of the vast room. Before them stood a smaller platform, raised just enough for the figure who now ascended its steps to be seen by all. Lucifer, the morning star, moved with calculated grace, his every step deliberate, his every movement commanding attention. His golden wings shimmered as though catching every ray of light in the room, and his face bore a practiced serenity, though his eyes gleamed with something far deeper: ambition. When he reached the center of the platform, Lucifer raised his hands, and the room fell silent. The rustling of wings ceased. The murmurs stilled. The only sound was the faint hum of the river of life beneath the transparent floor, a gentle but unyielding reminder of the Creator's presence. Lucifer began, his voice smooth and resonant, a melody woven with steel. "My brothers and sisters," he began, his tone warm yet deliberate, "we gather here not to divide, but to unite, not to rebel, but to reform." Gabriel, standing with his arms crossed in the crowd, felt his chest tighten at Lucifer's opening words. He had known the morning star since his creation and had admired his brilliance, but these words carried an unfamiliar edge. His wings shifted slightly, their faint golden shimmer betraying his unease. Lucifer paused, his golden eyes sweeping over the assembly, meeting the gazes of angels, representatives, and beings who hung on his every word. "I know the whispers that have spread through our realms. They say I am a traitor, that I seek to destroy the harmony of heaven. But I stand before you now to speak the truth, to give voice to the thoughts many of you have dared not utter. From his position near the edge of the assembly, Raphael closed his eyes briefly, his heart aching with each word. He could feel the confusion emanating from the angels around him, their unease feeding into his own. "How did it come to this?" he whispered under his breath, gripping the hem of his robes. He glanced toward Selephiel, who stood nearby, his copper-colored wings trembling as though caught in a sudden breeze. Lucifer's wings shifted slightly, catching the prismatic light, emphasizing the brilliance of his form. Heaven was once a beacon of freedom, a realm where each of us could shine in the fullness of our creation. But I ask you now, does it still feel so? Are we still free when we are asked to bow without question, to follow without understanding? Selephiel's breath hitched at the words, and he cast a glance toward Cassiel, who stood motionless, his 6 wings folded tightly around him like a shield. What if he's right?" Selephiel murmured. His voice trembled, betraying the conflict within. Cassiel turned to him, his piercing blue eyes meeting Selephiel's gaze. "Freedom without law is chaos," Cassiel said quietly, but firmly. "Do not let your heart be swayed by half-truths, Selephiel. Lucifer's words are beautiful, but beauty can conceal poison." Lucifer pressed forward, his voice gaining momentum, the cadence of a master orator. "I do not speak these words lightly. I have served faithfully since the moment of my creation. I have stood near the throne, basked in the light of the Creator, carried out his commands with joy. But as I have watched, I have seen a troubling pattern emerge, a shift away from the liberty we once knew." He stepped closer to the edge of the platform, his golden gaze piercing. "Why must the sun hold a position above us? Why must secrets be kept from those who serve so diligently? Are we not beings of intelligence, of inherent righteousness? Why must we, the hosts of heaven, be ruled by laws as though we cannot discern right from wrong ourselves?" Raphael felt a pang of sadness at these words. He looked around and saw some angels nodding slightly, their expressions thoughtful, while others furrowed their brows in deep concern. He caught Gabriel's eye, and in that moment, no words were needed. They both felt the weight of what was happening, the hearts of their brethren being pulled in opposing directions. Lucifer's voice softened, almost mournful, as he let the weight of his words settle over the assembly. "I ask you, is it love that binds with chains? Is it freedom to follow blindly, without question, without understanding? My brothers and sisters, I do not seek to destroy. I seek to elevate, to restore, to bring forth a government that honors the intelligence and autonomy of every being." Gabriel's fists clenched at his sides, his golden wings flickering slightly. He wanted to shout, to plead with his brothers and sisters not to be deceived, but he held his tongue. He knew this was not the moment to speak. Instead, he bowed his head, silently praying for clarity and strength. Lucifer gestured toward the thrones at the center of the room, his movements deliberate. "Why is it that the Son alone is exalted? Why are we, the countless hosts of heaven, not included in the decisions that shape the very fabric of our existence? Are we not the laborers, the builders, the ones who bring the Creator's commands to life? Why then, are we not trusted with understanding, with choice?" Lucifer's words reverberated through the assembly, their eloquence undeniable. Cassiel closed his eyes briefly, his mind racing with thoughts of the law and its sacred purpose. He knew Lucifer's argument was flawed, but the subtlety of its deception was what frightened him most. He opened his eyes, glancing at Selephiel again. "He is trying to twist the very fabric of love itself," Cassiel said softly, but with conviction. "Do not let him blind you to the truth." Lucifer's tone shifted, becoming almost confessional. "Do you not feel it? The weight of expectations placed upon us without explanation, the decisions made without our counsel. Even now, as we gather here, There are those among you who fear to speak, fear to question. Raphael felt tears sting his eyes, his heart breaking for those around him who looked at Lucifer with a newfound hope. He could see the division forming, the love and harmony of heaven being strained before his very eyes. "Oh, Father, help us," he whispered. Lucifer spread his wings slightly, their golden feathers catching the light and refracting it into dazzling patterns. "I do not speak for myself alone. Look around you. The whispers you've heard, the doubts, the questions, they are not mine alone. They are yours. They are the voices of those who long for a better way." He lowered his voice, making it intimate, personal. "We can have that better way. We can have a government that reflects the true freedom and love we were created to enjoy. A government where no being is above another, where no law binds us against our will. I do not ask you to rebel. I ask you to rise, to stand for the freedom you were created to possess." He stepped back, his final words hanging in the air like a challenge. "Choose wisely, my brothers and sisters, for what we decide today will shape the course of eternity." The silence that followed was deafening. Gabriel's heart ached as he watched angels he loved, angels he had served alongside for ages, begin to turn to one another with uncertainty in their eyes. Raphael closed his eyes, silently weeping for what was being lost. Selephiel remained motionless, his gaze locked on the platform where Lucifer had stood, his expression unreadable. Lucifer stepped down from the platform, his wings trailing faint streams of light. His face remained serene, but inside he exulted. The seeds had been sown. Now all he had to do was wait for them to bear fruit. He cast a glance toward Michael, who sat unmoved on his throne. The son's expression was calm, his gaze steady. Lucifer's smile faltered, but only for a moment. He turned and walked away, confident that his words had done their work. As Lucifer descended from the platform, his words hung heavily in the air, their deceptive elegance seeping into the hearts of many who listened. Whispers coursed through the assembly like ripples across the surface of a still pond, and even the light of the throne seemed to dim slightly in response to the unease. But then Michael rose. The Son of God stood slowly, with a grace that seemed to still time itself. His robes shimmered with the light of the throne, reflecting every hue of the great rainbow, and his face radiated calm, love, and resolve. As he stepped forward, every being fell silent. Even the faint hum of the river of life seemed to quiet, as though it too leaned in to listen. Michael's gaze swept over the assembly, his expression tender yet resolute. "My brothers and sisters," he began, his voice steady, resonant, and infused with an authority that could not be shaken. "You have heard the words of the morning star, his questions, his doubts, his grievances. They weigh heavy on many hearts, and I understand. For I too grieve the discontent that has taken root among us." From the crowd, Gabriel stood with his wings drawn close, his heart aching at the sight of so many angels wavering. Selephiel, his copper wings trembling, cast a glance toward Cassiel, who stood unyielding, his 6 wings folded tightly as he listened with piercing focus. Michael's voice carried over the assembly, firm but gentle. "Lucifer speaks of freedom, but what he offers is not freedom. It is lawlessness. He speaks of love, yet he sows division. He speaks of equality, but his heart burns with ambition. The law of my Father is not a chain but a shield, not a burden but a foundation. It is the framework within which love and freedom coexist." Selephiel looked down, his expression pained. He wanted to believe in that foundation, but Lucifer's words had stirred questions he could not ignore. "Can't there be more than one way?" he whispered faintly to Raphael, who stood beside him. Raphael's emerald wings shimmered faintly as he placed a steady hand on his brother's shoulder. Michael continued, his tone rich with sorrow and compassion. "To cast off the law of the Creator is not to gain freedom, it is to abandon the very essence of life. For the law of my Father is not arbitrary. It is the expression of his character. It is love. It is justice. It is harmony. Michael's eyes softened, and he turned his gaze to the wavering angels, speaking as though to each one individually. Lucifer has asked why I was exalted. He has questioned the wisdom of the Father in granting me authority. And I tell you now, the Son was not exalted to diminish you, but to reveal the fullness of the Father's love. My role is not to rule over you, but to serve you, to preserve the harmony of heaven. He stepped closer to the edge of the platform, his voice dropping to a personal, almost pleading tone. I know the questions in your hearts. I know the doubts. But I ask you to look around. This realm, this harmony, this beauty, none of it exists apart from the Creator's love. Every ray of light, every note of song, every breath of joy you have ever known flows from him. Cassiel's piercing gaze never left Michael, his thoughts steady and resolute. Lucifer's claims might sound appealing, he thought, but to discard love's boundaries is to discard love itself. Michael gestured toward the throne, where the Father's light radiated infinite warmth. Would you turn from that love? Would you exchange the perfection of harmony for the chaos of rebellion? To turn from him is to turn from life itself. A murmur rippled through the assembly, some angels nodding, others lowering their eyes, their confusion deepening. Gabriel's voice was firm as he whispered to a nearby angel, "We were created in his love. To turn away is to unravel all that we are." Michael's tone deepened, resonating with urgency. Lucifer has spoken of a new way. But ask yourselves, what is this way built upon? It is not built on love, for it divides. It is not built on justice, for it sows confusion. It is not built on truth, for it twists the words of the Creator into shadows. His gaze sharpened, though his voice remained filled with compassion. Lucifer's way is built on one thing: himself. He does not seek your freedom, he seeks your allegiance. He does not seek your joy, he seeks his own exaltation. And if you follow him, you will find not liberty, but ruin. Serafiel swallowed hard, tears forming in his eyes. His mind wrestled with the tension between loyalty and doubt. Meanwhile, Raphael's thoughts steadied like a firm anchor. The law is love, he resolved silently. The Creator has never wavered in his goodness. Michael's voice softened, a note of deep sorrow entering his tone. I grieve for him. I grieve for the one who once sang with the highest choir, whose light was a reflection of the Creator's glory. But his path is one of destruction, and I plead with you now, do not follow him. Do not trade the love of the Creator for the hollow promises of one who has turned from the light. Michael turned fully to the assembly, his arms outstretched in a gesture of profound love. I do not stand here to demand your loyalty. I do not stand here to command your obedience. For love cannot be forced. It must be given freely, or it is not love at all. He paused, the room heavy with emotion as every being held their breath. The Creator's government is not built on fear or compulsion. It is built on love. It is built on freedom, and that freedom is yours to choose. His voice grew quieter, but the power of his words intensified, wrapping around every heart present. But I ask you, with all the love in my heart, choose wisely. For the path you walk will shape not only your own destiny, but the destiny of all creation. Michael's final words resonated like a living echo, pressing deeply into every soul. The assembly remained silent, caught between the gravity of his plea and the shadows of doubt that Lucifer had sown. Serafiel's trembling ceased as he whispered under his breath, I will choose the Creator. But as the silence held, the tension grew, and the light of the throne flickered, not in weakness, but as though heaven itself mourned the division within its ranks. Lucifer stepped forward, his wings unfurling in a blaze of defiant light. His voice, sharp and commanding, cut through the chaos. "You see? This is the tyranny I warned you about. He demands your allegiance without question, your love without freedom. Is this the Creator's so-called love?" Cheers erupted from Lucifer's supporters, clashing with cries of sorrow and disbelief from the loyal angels. The golden streets trembled underfoot, and the river of life roared louder, as if mourning the division tearing through heaven. Michael stepped forward, his expression unyielding. His voice rang out like a clarion call. "Lucifer, your choice is made, and your lies will not stand. The Creator's love is unshaken, and his justice endures." Lucifer's eyes blazed with fury. "Then let the heavens decide," he roared. "Let strength prove who is worthy to rule." Chaos erupted. Angels surged forward, light clashing with light, sound with sound. The harmonious melodies of heaven fractured into a cacophony of battle cries and the thunderous roar of rebellion. Beams of light collided like celestial lightning, and heaven itself seemed to shudder. Michael drew his sword, its brilliance piercing the chaos, his voice commanding, "You cannot prevail, Lucifer. The Creator's kingdom will endure." Lucifer turned, his face twisted with rage. "Then we will see, Son of God. We will see who is worthy." Their clash sent a shockwave through the heavens, a force that echoed through eternity. The golden streets, the sapphire court, even the river of life became battlefields as heaven erupted in war. Wings flashed like fire, and voices rose in anguished defiance or resolute loyalty. Above it all, the throne stood firm, its light unyielding, a beacon of hope and justice. But the war had begun, and its outcome would forever alter the course of the universe.